Hello and welcome to this little mini tips video. I'm doing these short videos on anything around building your intuition, but also working with energy in general. So I wanted to focus in on what is called saging, and some people also call this smudging or cleansing. And I've noticed that there is just a huge momentum building around this. Many more people are interested in saging, particularly their home space, where you spend the most time. And the reason that I wanted to share, again, these are just my tips over what I've found to work, but you will find lots of information online and likely lots of other videos that talk about how to do saging. But I'm just sharing my tips because people have asked for that. So the theory behind the saging, it originally started with the Native Americans because white sage is common to areas like California and the Southwest. And so the Native Americans used sage as a way to, in rituals and ceremonies, as a way to kind of let loose persistent energies that weren't supportive. Now I want to be careful here because the way that energy works is you get what you believe in. So your belief, it's why I truly feel that believe is the strongest word in our English vocabulary. You get what you believe. So if I'm not offering this so that you can get rid of all the negativity in your life or to get rid of demonic spirits. I'm not a person that gives energy and attention to that kind of subject matter. So my question to you, or what I would pose to you to think about is, what is your belief system around all that? Because if energies feel that there is an opening to come in to participate in a human experience, let's call it that, then they will take it. These are disembodied energies, and energies do exist, but it's all in your belief as to what you feel your house contains or whatever space you're looking to cleanse. The way that I like to think about it is I sage more to clear away what I call chaos energy or static. What I visualize actually when I sage is like Pigpen from the Peanuts. It's all that like dust that's all around him all the time. And he's a really good-hearted person, good little kid. But he's just got this little chaos energy around him, this little dirt devil energy. And that's all that I'm looking to release, is just to clean up the energy, to make it as clear and as uplifting as possible. And it's when energies get too dense that it can feel like a negative environment. It's the density of the energy contained there. Perhaps a lot of bickering, arguing, kind of negative thought forms, little, gossipy stuff. That kind of energy builds very dense energies. And so the whole environment can feel very kind of depleted. Okay, so that's a good time to sage. Now, with sage, of course, the standard is using white sage, and white sage comes in different forms. Most of the time, I like these sticks, and I like the short size. Usually, when they're brand new, they're about this long. You can get them in this huge size, and I've had those too. I got an amazing one from Sedona when we were out there. But wow, you better have a really big space that you're looking to cleanse, or it's really great for outdoor cleansing because it's very potent and it burns very deeply in a bundle that large. Also, another option that I like if I'm just looking to do, excuse me, just a little sage, a short one, are these loose loose leaves of sage. Okay, you can buy them in bulk, and it's easily available through Amazon. I would try to go for white sage from like around the California area. That's always recommended. But you can get sage lots of places, and I've found online sources that have turned out to be just fine. And then if you have local intuitive or crystal shops, they'll often have that as well. Additionally, there are other types of things you can burn. I don't personally burn these, but I'm just wanting you to know. Lavender, mugwort, tobacco is actually like the most sacred of all saging products. That is what Native Americans actually used at the start, even before sage. Cedar, sweetgrass, juniper, and copal. In addition, you can also burn something called Palo Santo, and this is a piece of wood from a particular type of tree. It has a very different kind of smell. It reminds me kind of cedar, but that's another option for saging. And I tend to kind of bounce between the Palo Santo and using some form of white sage. Another option for saging is incense. And not everybody likes the smell of incense, so that's why I don't personally use it too often. But here are a couple of examples. This one's called Holy Smoke, and this is Palo Santo with copal. And these are sage sticks. Of course, you could also get do saging with the cone style of incense. That's always another option. And, you know, if you're wanting to cleanse, let's say, a workplace, probably the smoke from the sage is not something you want to bring into the workplace. Who knows, it could set off the sprinklers or the fire alarms. That wouldn't be good. So you can also use sage spray, and there are a variety of these on the market. I happen to have one that's from Amanda Ellis out of the UK. Her company is called Angelic Celestial Colors, and she has this white sage spray that's really nice. And this is a good option if you don't want to have the smoke effect. The smoke does dissipate pretty quickly, but that smell can linger in the air, and again, definitely could set off fire alarms if you have particularly sensitive ones. So that's another option for that. The other thing you can do is there's sage essential oil, and you can diffuse that with water, so just a few drops in your diffuser with water, and that will bring the sage into the air, and that will do the same job. So that's another option. Obviously adds that sage smell to the air. A lot of people say that the sage does smell a bit like marijuana, and I would agree. It took me a while to get used to it, but now it's just a pattern for me. You know, it's just something that I just do as part of my routine. And I would say that I do feel it's important to make it a ritual that feels special to you every time you decide to sage. And so that's why, like, a lot of people house their sage as it's burning in an abalone shell. And I'll tell you why, because the abalone represents the element of water, okay, directly coming from the ocean. The sage itself represents the element of earth. When you light it, obviously fire is represented, and then the smoke represents air. So this is why the Native Americans so treasured this in their rituals, because it was like both cleansing the pathways but also bringing in the freshest energy from what they call the four directions, or that also relates to the four elements. So that's another reason why I'm particularly drawn to doing saging. Now, when to do it, that's another question I get a lot. So I always sage, honestly, before I sit down to do any kind of intuitive work. I have a particular area set up here with all my crystals. My cards are all available, my aura sprays, all my tools, okay? And every time, no matter if I'm just journaling for myself or pulling some cards for myself or I'm doing readings for other people, I always take the time to sage, because it just sets a level playing field and it just opens up, I feel, the intuitive pathways to be as clear as they can be. Another time is, again, when you feel that density of the energy. And again, that's the way I like to reference it. It's like little, it's dirt devil energy. It's energy that all gets wrapped around itself. And it really makes you feel very unmotivated and very just sort of like you've got a very heavy wet blanket on yourself. And so that's a good time to sage. I've also saged out in environments where there are like critters that people don't want. I've saged in horse barns, absolutely, in riding rings. I just walk around the edge of the ring. It's such a gratifying job to do that, because I can really feel it lift. Because of course, riders and horses are bringing so much anxiety, even if they're very experienced riders. Still, there is this fear and anxiety that is ever present, and all the stuff that we as humans just bring to the ring with us, when people ride. So that's an area that really can use regular cleansing. Or if you have a farm, walk right through with the sage, just to lighten it. The animals very much appreciate sage. Horses, I know in particular, they just love it. They love it, and you can really feel their energy become more buoyant. Okay, so I want to keep this somewhat short, so I want to just show you kind of what my method is. And again, I love to keep it really special. So I've got my sage in my abalone shell, and I like to use real matches. I do not prefer as much using a butane lighter. Again, it's just a thing with me. I love the fact that I'm lighting the match and, bringing this forward. So that's just the way that I like to do it. So I've got my match here, and I'm just lighting the end of this. And just be careful that you don't light up too much of it, because you can have, a serious sage event, as I call it, going on. And what I like to do, I think it's maybe hard to see, I like to dip into the fire a little bit. It kind of brings the whole thing to life for me. And I kind of do at the beginning this little spiral pattern. That's just a thing that I like to do, just to get the energy working. And then you see, you just have this, there's no flame. You can just see it's just barely lit there. And that's what you want. You don't want a big flame on your sage, because it's very quickly going to get overwhelming, okay? The other piece that I use that's very special is I ordered this from a wonderful lady who I met when I was at a healing school, and she made this for me, and it's got this beautiful little piece of labradorite on the handle, little peacock feather in there. The feather represents birds, which for Native Americans is the closest kind of form to spirit, and being able to see very clearly. So that's why the feather is used to help direct the sage in the direction where you want it to go. So if I'm cleansing a house, let's say, I would generally start, if I'm really doing a full cleansing, I would start in the basement. And it's very important. The key is you've got to get in the corners. You've got to make sure you touch into each corner within a house, within a room. And also into closets is very important because energy gathers there. We don't realize it. Behind doors, anywhere that's hidden like that. You don't have to get into drawers and things of that nature, but more when you consider the structure of the room. So getting into just fanning that sage smoke into the corners. Okay, and then just slowly working around the room. I usually will try to kind of walk the perimeter of the room. Yeah, and then just move room to room to room. Now, for those of you that are dowsers, you can use either your pendulum or dowsing rods. Rods are actually my preferred method. And I use the rod to ask, is this room now fully cleansed? And get a yes or no. The beauty with using a rod is that it can point. If you got a no indication with your rod, ask it to show you where is cleansing needed. And it will point right to the area of the room where there's still heavy energy. And believe it or not, this can be like the seat where a particular person sits regularly. I know when my when my husband was going through some tough times at work, and he was his usual delightful self. I mean, I knew he was stressed, but his chair contained a lot of very dense energy. And so I would specifically sage around that area in order to bring him a sense of lightness, okay? And I had those times too as I was going, and have been going through cancer treatment. It's the same thing, there are times when you just need to cleanse that energy out. So just walking through the room, and you don't have to douse, that's just like, to me, that's bringing it to another level where you're just really becoming more complete in your saging, okay, in your cleansing. The other question I get asked a lot is how often? I think this depends. You need to take the temperature. Let's say that your project is trying to cleanse the energy of a house. You have to take the temperature of what the inhabitants are going through and just see what you think, we have a teenager in the house, so particularly when he was younger, so in his 13, 14-year-old phase, that's always a tough time in life, and I was saging every week. I was saging once a week, and I asked his permission, but I would go in his room and sage in his room because there's a lot of electronics, violent games, all of that. All of that is energy, okay? So it really helps to just counterbalance a little bit of that. And that's the goal with saging. You're just trying to bring a balance. You're not trying to, this is not unicorn and rainbows time. This is just trying to equalize the energy because it can very quickly get out of whack, okay? So I think that's what I wanted to cover. I want to keep these videos kind of short, but I do encourage you to sage. For most people, I would say, even if you're doing great, if you sage your environment maybe once a month, I think that's fabulous. So just kind of gauge that for yourself, and let me know any questions you have. I'm always happy to help with any types of questions related to this type of work. Alrighty, bye-bye for now.